Some houses feel like they were built to keep people out, not weather. And the Whitaker place in Westlake was exactly that, glass for walls, gates that shut without a sound, hallways so long your footsteps got nervous, and inside that museum of a home, I was a quiet shadow named Nina Brooks, the live-in housekeeper. People talked past, nodded at, or handed a list to, you know what I mean. But the night Caleb Whitaker pushed open a bathroom door and found me on the tile with clippers in my hand and hair everywhere, that was the night anyone in that house truly saw me. And it's the night this whole story took a breath. Owen was 7 soft brown eyes, a faux tape like little white flags on his arms, a laugh he kept tucked away for better weather. Leukemia doesn't knock, it just moves in, and Caleb, billionaire schedule king, outcome guy, believed pain could be managed, like markets hire the best. Write the checks, track the numbers, keep feelings on mute, saint. David's built a private suite, and the nurses were kind, but the machines blinked like polite strangers, and the house went quiet in a way that wasn't rest. It was retreat, and the boy who used to race toy cars down the hallway just stared at ceilings and stopped asking about anything. My job on paper was laundry and lists, but my job in practice was sit with the kid, so we counted the blue stripes on the IV tubing. We named the nightlight and gave it a job title. We built pillow forts that leaned like old barns. I told him he was brave even on days the word wouldn't stick then. One afternoon, he saw himself in the mirror. His hair had started coming out in soft handfuls, and he touched his head. Looked at me and whispered, "Why am I the weird one, Miss Nina?" He didn't mean hair, he meant tubes and hushed voices and adults talking around him like he was furniture with ears. I said, "You don't look wrong, you look brave," and he nodded like he wanted to believe me. Then turned his face to the pillow and didn't speak for the rest of the day. That evening, the house manager, Ms. Caldwell, stopped me in the hall with that thin smile people wear when they like rules more than people. "Nina, you are not trained for therapeutic conversations. Please stick to your list," she said. And I said my list is a 7-year-old who won't look at himself. She blinked like I'd mispronounced my own name, floated off, tossed, "Stay in your lane," over her shoulder, and kept moving like her heels had somewhere more important to be than a child's room. So that night, after the halls finally went quiet, I locked the staff bathroom, stared down my reflection, and picked up a pair of clippers I'd borrowed from maintenance. I wasn't trying to be noble, I was tired of Owen being alone in something that scared him. If he didn't have hair, then I didn't want mine either. It felt like the only honest trade I could make, so I took a breath, pressed the buzzing against my head, and watched the first dark wave slide down the mirror. I cried and kept going, until the person in the glass looked like someone standing with him, not above him, and I didn't hear the door until a small voice said, "Miss Nina, why'd you do that?" He was there in sock feet, thin shoulders, eyes too big for his face. I knelt and put his hand on my buzzed scalp, "So you won't be the only one." I said he studied me the way 7 has to, when it's been asked to grow up too fast. Then he looked back at the mirror, and for the first time in weeks, he didn't look away. His shoulders dropped like he'd put down something heavy, and that's when the other door opened, and Caleb stepped in, the suit jacket still on tie, loosened like it lost an argument. He took in the clippers, the hair on the tile, Owen's hand on my head, and the look on his face wasn't anger. It was the shock of seeing love show up where you never scheduled it. In the morning, he walked into Owen's room with his own head shaved to the wood, no speech, no camera, just this awkward little smile he didn't know where to park, and Owen burst out laughing so hard he surprised himself. "Dad, you look like a peeled potato," he said, and Caleb winced. "That bad, huh?" Then grinned, "For real. Figured we could match," he said, And something cracked open in that room after that. He started showing up, not walking through like a CEO on a site visit, but sitting holding, listening. He burned pancakes at 6 a.m., while Owen heckled us from a stool. Chef Disaster and Chef Oops, he named us. We cheered for three-step marathons from the bed to the door. We swapped the soft hum of machines for dinosaur flashcards and silly stories. The house warmed up, even the silence started to sound like waiting, instead of giving up, and, "Yeah, Miss Caldwell cornered me by the pantry to say your stunt has encouraged certain deviations." I said, "You mean pancakes," she said. "I mean hierarchy and boundaries. You are staff and he is your employer." And I told her the one thing I could live with. He is Owen's dad, and Owen needs a dad more than he needs a perfect calendar. She leaned in, perfume like paperwork. "You're overstepping." And I said, "Maybe, but if stepping over a tape line is the cost of showing up for a kid who's scared to look in the mirror, write me up." Then came the consult room with too many chairs and a soft lamp, the one hospitals save for hard sentences. I waited in the hall, pretending to read a magazine from last summer. Caleb came out with the look people get when the ground shifts, but you're somehow still standing. "They want to talk palliative." "Unless we find a perfect match," he said. And perfect match hung there like a dare, so we went to work, registry, searches, emails at strange hours, blood draws for anyone who loved or liked or worked with the kid. I asked to be tested and got a polite no. "At first, immediate family takes priority," the coordinator said with that laminated smile long hallways give you. Ms. Caldwell chimed in from the corner. "Nina's not family," she said like she was returning a library book. I looked at the coordinator and said, "Test me, please." The coordinator studied my face for a beat and nodded expectations. "Keep them reasonable," and we kept moving close calls near matches, no perfect. A week later, the hospital called both of us in different room, no soft lamp, a hematologist with kind eyes and a genetic counselor who looked like she'd practiced this conversation in the car. "We found your match," the doctor said. "We didn't cheer when hope's been teased and yanked. You hold it like glass. It's Nina," he added. 100%, the counselor said. "So perfect." We ran it again and again. The only time you see a match like this is biological relation, and the rest came out in careful sentences that still managed to break the air. Years ago, a private agency used by Caleb's late wife had paperwork that wasn't just sloppy, it was dishonest. There'd been a swap, a file, a nurse who finally told the truth, because guilt doesn't like retirement, and the baby, I was told, did not make it, had been handed through a chain of bad hands, and landed in a home where I would later work. The boy who had called me Miss Nina until he got brave enough to call me something softer was my son. Yeah, that happened. I sat very still and listened to a science report. Confirm what my heart had been whispering for years. Caleb looked from the folder to me, to the floor, like he was searching for the version of himself that could carry this right. "We fix the medical part now," he said. "We do right by the legal part." Next, nobody argued. The transplant plan unfurled like a blueprint, pre-op harvest. Infusion counts the language of hope spoken in numbers that decide whether a future gets furniture harvest day. I wore a paper gown and an expression that said, I was fine even when I wasn't. I woke up sore and smiling, because hurt with a purpose is different than hurt that wanders. They wheeled me past Owen's door, and he pretended to sleep. Good, his job was to heal the infusion, looked boring, if you didn't know what it meant. A bag, a line, a quiet beeping. But for us, it was a door. The next days were a patient war of wipes and whispers and watching numbers. Caleb slept in a vinyl recliner that made him walk funny. He didn't bring his laptop. Ms. Caldwell tried to deliver a stack of mail like the world was still arranged by stationery. He said thank you, set it on the sill. and kept tracing little circles on his boy's wrist. One bright morning, the labs read like phone numbers. "You actually wanted to memorize, engraftment is happening," the doctor said. And for the first time I cried without apologizing. Recovery isn't a montage. It's towels and teeth brushing, and the kind of patience you usually only borrow. It's laughter that trips and then remembers how to run. Owen asked for half a grilled cheese, then a whole, then the corner of another. He walked to the door, then the hall, then the fish tank at the nurse's station, where the grumpy orange one became our therapist. We took pictures not to post, but to remember that small victories show up wearing regular clothes. We waited to tell him the truth, until home felt like home again, hair fuzzing back like spring grass, guest wing smelling like cinnamon and crayon. I sat on his bed while Caleb pulled a chair close. "Can we tell you a weird story that ends?" "Good," I asked, he said. "Is it about the time Dad burned pancakes 3 in a row worse?" Caleb said with a grin. "We told him love doesn't always arrive where it's supposed to. On the first try, that grown-ups sometimes get tricked by people who should know better, that I wasn't just the lady who stays when the hard parts show up." I was his mom. The room went still. He studied my face for the parts of his face he recognized. "Is that why you shaved your head?" he asked. "Partly," I said. "Mostly because you were doing something hard, and I didn't want you doing it by yourself." He hugged me like he was remembering not learning. Caleb set a hand on his back, and we sat like that, 3 people who had all been alone in different ways, remembering together. Not everyone clapped for our version of "Finally the agency's lawyer called with a voice polished enough to see your reflection in it, and offered a number with more zeros than I've ever seen." But only if we signed and stayed quiet, the board at Whitaker Capital said. "Optics," Ms. Caldwell said. Lanes and Caleb told the board. "Optics don't outrank oxygen," and told the agency they could meet us in court or in front of cameras. He told Ms. Caldwell to take a long vacation and decide who she wanted to be when she came back. People can change, that's the other miracle. Nobody puts on a chart. Caleb didn't become perfect. He still burned toast and sometimes defaulted to calendar speak when he got nervous. But he learned to say, "I'm scared to ask. What do you need from me right now?" to show up early without checking. What time early was, he started a foundation in his late wife's name to help families separated by bad paperwork and worse motives. "Find each other again," he said. It plain, we owe truth and we owe repair. At Owen's next birthday, the backyard sounded like life paper airplanes in the Cedar, kids yelling about nothing and everything. A cake he picked that looked like a volcano erupting in a candy store. On top, he piped the words himself, "Thank you, Mom," shaky and perfect inside over the mantel, where rich folks usually hang a boat. We put a photo in a simple frame, me on a bathroom floor with hair everywhere, clippers in my lap, a boy's hand on my head, a man in a doorway, deciding love could be learned. We hung it there because that's where our whole life turned. And here's the part that gets families arguing at dinner tables. The agency's offer is still on the table. A fortune for silence. Take the money and rebuild quietly, or go loud and risk the peace we fought like hell to earn me. I stand in Owen's doorway at night and think about other mothers standing in other doorways with empty arms because somebody cashed a check. Caleb says, "Burn it down and fix the system loud." Some folks we love say protect the calm and heal in private, and maybe you know exactly what we should do, or maybe you don't. Yeah, that's real either way. We'll choose with Owen at the center, not numbers or noise. If you've stayed with me this far, tell me what you think. Would you take the money and move on, or go public, and shake a system that keeps hurting people who can't afford? Lawyers. Have you watched power tell someone to stay in their lane and seen them cross it anyway? Drop your take in the comments. Be honest. Be kind. And if you know someone who needs to hear that, showing up beats showing off, share this with them. We'll be here in the morning, probably burning pancakes again, and learning on purpose how to be a family.